Hey everybody, I'm Psychosaurus, and today, we're gonna go more deep into another stats. This time it's gonna be about mainly villagers and buildings. So if you have missed my previous video about the combat stats, more deep, or even the basic stats, yeah, go check them out. You might like it as well. It's a good knowledge to have about these stats. Okay, let's get started. So, yeah, we're gonna start with the villager stats. So we're gonna go through this. So gather rate. This is the amount of resources you gather per second. Obviously, it can also depend on the source, which is mainly through about food. There, for the other resources, there's only one source for each. So yeah, this is mainly about food. It can depend. Hey, do you harvest the food from berry bushes? Do you harvest it from huntables? Yeah, it has the different rates for those sources. And carry capacity is the max amount of resource unit can carry. Now, what is very important to notice is the fact about gear, and this is not obvious on the first sight. So gear affects actually both gather rate and the carry capacity, but you can see only the gather rate. So we're gonna take a look at this. Yeah, just so you know, here in the stats you can see the food different, like from huntables, herdables. So yeah, if we take a look at the tools, and yeah, we can also see it in the stats. You can see the carry capacities, which are here. The food carrying are different for each tool. Like you have the base, you have this tool, and you have these. Now you cannot see this in the game, but if you go here to the unit stats, you can actually see this. If you click this nice cogwheel here, you can see the food carrying capacity, stone carrying capacity being increased by a certain percentage. Remember, it's not the same as the gather rates for the tools. It can be true for some tools, like for example, we're gonna go here, and this is actually true for tool of Valen. You can see the food carrying capacity is the same as the food gathering sources. Yeah, for some reason it's separated here into multiple food sources, but yeah, it is the same. You can see like the average is 9.76%, so for this one it's actually true. Yeah, and yeah, definitely notice the rates. It's nice thing to notice, and we're gonna go into something more deeper about this, and that is the I made a graph here, and it is about the working time of a villager. So what do you want from villagers is build buildings. That's not important right now. What we want, the other thing is to gather resources, and this graph is mainly about it. So where's my cursor? There you are. Okay. So yeah, so this is gonna be mainly about working time, and I split it into two parts, which actually is two parts. You have the gather time, which is when the villager is actually harvesting the resources, and then you have the walking time, which is when the villager is traveling back and forth from the source to the drop site, which can be storehouse, which can be town center, or even docks. Yeah, so about the gather time, this is actually equal to the carry capacity, the maximum amount of resources the villager can carry, divided by the gather rate, the amount of resources you get per second. This will give you the time, how long it takes to gather, or how long it takes to actually get all the resources up to the carry capacity. And then the walking time, that is actually equal to the distance divided by the movement speed. So I've separated this graph into multiple parts. So we have the beginning, the start, when the villager starts harvesting, then it reaches its maximum capacity, the carry capacity, so it has harvested all the resources that can carry, and now it's taking all the resources back to the drop site. Halfway there it drops, and then it goes back to the source, and that's where this ends. And now this whole thing repeats until like the source is actually depleted, or when it finds different source, which can be like trees and such. So what is actually important to notice that if you increase the gather rate, you lower Not only the gather time, you lower the whole working time. By how much? Well, let's say you double the gather rate. You cut the gather time in half. So if you got it, and obviously if you cut it in half, by that same amount of time, you lower it, you also lower the whole working time, which is actually pretty good because the less time it takes the villager to gather all the resources, the more often it drops, the more resources you get. That's actually very good for you. And yeah, make sure you get the high gather rates as much as possible. And yeah, to what does the carry capacity does is the other effect, which actually increases the gather time, but also increases the working time, which is kind of bad, right? Because it delays when the villager drops off the resources. So because it delays it, you don't get the resources as soon as possible, and that can mean something like, hey, it can delay your units being produced, for example. So why is this even a good thing? Well, let's say it this way. It actually is a very good thing because it increases the gather time. Although it increases the working time, it increases the gather time. And this is good because this actually improves some kind of ratio of gather time over walking time. And the higher the ratio, the better the ratio is, the more effective your villagers are. Because the less time they spend walking around and rather spend time gathering, the more resources you actually get per second. You could actually say that if you take this ratio and multiply it by the gather rate, this is effectively how many resources you're getting per second from that villager. So for example, if you spend 9 seconds gathering and then 1 second walking, your villager is effective 90% of the time. So if you have, let's say, 2 units, you have the gather rate of 2 units per second, and you have the effectiveness 90%, that means you're getting actually 1.8 resources per second. So this is quite important to notice and make sure that the capacity is there as well, because hey, you improve the gather ratio. Now about the walking time, yeah, you want to minimize this as much as possible, because the more time you spend traveling, the less resources for you. So how do you minimize this? Well, pretty much you can only do this by increasing the movement speed, and yeah, that's pretty much the way to shorten it. The other way, however, and this is actually not through the stats, this is actually in game, is by building a storehouse closer to the resource, or to the source. The closer it is, obviously, the less time traveling, the better it is. Obviously, it's gonna make the gather ratio even better for you. And can somehow actually the walking time get increased? Well, it's possible, but not for all the resources. Or rather, it's possible, but it's more typical for the trees, and that is pretty much one source is depleted, and then the villager has to move to the other nearby. So this is pretty typical for trees. Obviously, you cut down the trees. Hey, you need to move to another one which can be further away. Same can be said about the berry bushes, huntables. For these sources you pretty much see it quite often. And yeah, you wanna, if it's too far, let's say it's too far, you wanna build a storehouse closer so you don't spend that much time walking around with those villagers. So yeah, what I wanted with this graph is to show you how important it is to get those storehouse upgrades, because it is very important to shorten the working time with those gather rates. It is also quite important to get the wheelbarrow, but don't get it too soon. If you get it too soon and you don't have the gather rate too high, well, obviously you're just gonna delay your resources. Although you are shortening the walking time, but since the upgrade gives like 5% movement speed, yeah, it's not that much. So make sure you get the gather rates first over the wheelbarrow as much as possible, and always remember to build the storehouses close to those trees. And yeah, build them as close as possible so the villagers have enough space between the source and the storehouse, or town center, whatever you're using as the drop site. Yeah, make sure you make the gather ratio as effective as possible and shorten the working time as much as possible and get those economy upgrades. That's very important. Okay, Okay, let's move on to another stat, which is conservation. And yeah, some people might get this confused a little bit. What conservation does is that it increases the amount of resources you get from source. And yeah, conservation is pretty typical for stone gathering upgrades. You get always 25%. So what does the first stone gathering upgrade does is it gives you the stone gathering conservation 25%. So that means from one stone deposit, which typically contains 1000 stone, now you can harvest up to 1250 units of stone. That's how it works. And yeah, pretty much what you can see when you get the conservation, that when you gather 10 units of the resource, let's say the stone with the first stone upgrade, then you will remove only 8 units. So now you can take a look at the conservation this way, that for every unit that you remove from the source, you actually get 25%, or the conservation times 1. Yeah, so you get the conservation amount of resources. So I removed 8 units, but I got it actually 25% more, so I got 8 times 1.25, so that's 10 units. Or you can look at it the other way, that for every unit gathered you remove 1 over conservation from the source. So I gathered 10 units, 1 over the 25% is, or not 25%, 125%, that's how it is. So that's 4 over 5, yeah, that's equal to 8 units removed. Yeah, don't get it confused. Remember, it always means, hey, you get more resources. That's actually very important. And now for an interesting fact, gather more stat, which is something old, and honestly I don't even think that it is still in the game, but you might still see it in my old videos. So what this actually meant before, this was a stat that included both gather rate and carry capacity, and most of the times you could even say it, even conservation. And this stat was actually used in some of the old descriptions of advisors, some advisors, namely the H1 economy advisors such as Tutmos, uh, Cleon, and Erastos. And their all descriptions would say, hey, you gather more of that resource, and that would be it. And what did not say was like, hey, Tutmos has plus 8% gather rate, plus 8% carry capacity, and that was it. And then you had Cleon, which would give you, hey, you would get 15% gather rate, 15% carry capacity, and 15% conservation as well. So yeah, for Cleon and Erastos, those were like those two with the conservation. Yeah, I don't think this is a thing anymore, so you don't really have to worry about this. It's pretty much a history now, so don't really bother with this. Remember, gather rate, the amount of resources you get per second, carry capacity, how many units of the resource you can carry. Remember that gear affects both. Also, it's not only true for the tools, it's true also for the cloth armors, such as the tunic of the collector. You can check it in the unit stats as well. And remember, conservation is very nice, that you get more resources from that one, let's say, stone mine. Yeah, you get more from that one source. Okay, if you have any questions, leave a comment. I'll try to answer as best as I can. I don't think there's much to say about this. I couldn't think of anything else, so yeah, hopefully I've explained it as well as possible. Okay, let's move on to the next one, and that would be the building construction rate. So, building construction rate, this one actually I would say has two parts. One is building construction rate of a unit, which you can see on your villagers when you get, let's say, Divine Hammer of Construction, you see the building construction rate. So pretty much what this means is how fast the unit builds. That that's good to know, but probably what you want to know is how long does it take to build the buildings now, right? Because I say how fast the unit builds, but you won't rather the duration. So I would say there's also building construction rate, but it's a stat for buildings, and we'll get to this. So every building has its own max health and build time. We can all see this. We can see, hey, basic barracks has some amount of health and some it takes some time to build it. So what I'm going to define as a building construction rate here is the amount of health given to the building per second during the construction. So you have a unit, so when the building is being built, it obviously gets some amount of health per second, and after the duration of the build time, it will reach its maximum health, and when it reaches the maximum health, it's actually finished. And we're gonna think about this number during the 100% construction rate of the unit. So yeah, the building construction rate defined here is the building health divided by the build time, and that's our building construction rate. So I took the barracks as an example. So if you have the building HP 2250, which is the basic number of gearless barracks without any advisor milestone or anything. So yeah, this is the base number. The base build time is equal to 50. Then the building construction rate is equal to 45 seconds. But 45 health per second. Straightforward. As an example for the building construction rate of the units, we have the villager with 100% building construction rate. So when you put villager on the construction on building the barracks, this basic one, so the building construction rate will be actually the 100% times the 45. So the villager will give the barracks 45 health per second. Now let's say we use the Norse infantry, which actually have 50%, and this one has been actually changed a while back actually, because some Norse infantry actually had 100% construction rate, but they've been nerfed, and now every single Norse infantry unit has 50% construction rate, including the Norse chief as well. So if you take the Norse infantry, let's say spearman, and you put it on building the barracks, the same stats, this time the building construction rate will be actually the 45 times 50%. So it will be 22.5 health per second when the spearman builds the barracks. So now you can tell, hey, it's gonna take twice as long. Because why? Take a look at this formula. So like I said, if we take an example, so if we increase the health of the building, we all know that increasing health does not change the build time. So if we double the health, that means we also increase the building construction rate. So let's say we double the health, we also double the building construction rate. So here, as an example, if the barracks has 4,500 health, then the building construction rate will be 90, because the build time does not change. So what about if we change the build time? Yeah, so let's say we cut the build time in half. So instead of 50, it will be 25. So it will be 1/2 times the build time. Obviously, the building health does not change, so it will be constant. So again, we have to change the building construction rate. So we take this, so we have building HP over 1/2 of building time. That means, hey, it is actually the same as having 2 times the building health over build time, the basic build time. Yeah. So we actually double the building construction rate. So if we lower the building time down to 25 seconds, the building construction rate here will be again 90. That has the same effect. And we can see that if we double the construction rate, health again is being constant, so that means we have to change the build time. Again, we cut it in half, so it goes vice versa. So by doubling the building construction rate, yeah, you cut the build time in half. So if we take an example of the villager again, and this time we give it the divine hammer of construction with, let's say, 50%, that means we have 150% bonus construction rate. So now the building construction rate is 45 times 1.5, 150%. So now if we take it to the build time, we want to translate it. Yeah, so it's gonna be like, hey, we got 1.5 times the building construction rate, so that means we have to 1.5 times increase this fraction. Since the health is constant, we have to move it to the build time. So 1.5, that's equal to 3 over 2. So if we move it down to the build time, we just flip the numerator and denominator, and it will be 2 over 3. Sorry, times the build time. So when we increase the building construction rate by 50%, we cut the build time by 1/3, which is exactly how it works. So pretty much the new build time is equal to the new construction, the total construction rate. Excuse me, it's 1 over the total construction rate. So if we have 150%, then the new build time will be 1 over 150%. So yeah, that's equal to 2/3. You can see it works. So if I double the construction rate, again, it's cut in half. And just so you know, the Roman engineer also has some additional construction rate, which is equal to 35%. So for a total of 135%, this is equal to about 25% less building time. It's actually slightly better. So yeah, if you have the barracks, you cut it down by about 13 seconds. Now, what actually might be interesting is, what if you add multiple units to build the same building? Yeah, so I've tested it, and hopefully I won't forget. Here's a clip where I've tested building barracks with 1 villager, 2 villagers, 3 villagers, and 4 villagers. And then at the end I checked the health, and pretty much what this means, and this is something I heard about in Age of Empires 2, that in Age of Empires 2, if you put multiple villagers on building a building, every villager adds 1/3 of the construction rate. So if you have 1 villager, it's 100%. Adding 1 villager will increase it to 133%. Second one will be 167, and if you add the fourth one, then you just doubled the building construction rate. So you will, with 4 villagers, it will take half the time to build a building. And this is the same case here. So pretty much with the 1 villager, I was only halfway done with the barracks, where the 4 villagers were already done, and the 2 villagers had about 1/3 more health than the 1 villager. The 3 villagers had about 2/3 more health than the 1 villager. Yeah, so it was jumping by 1/3. Remember, this is actually being additive, so it's not a multiplicative, like, hey, if I add second villager, it will be like construction rate times 4/3, and then again if I add another one, it will be this construction rate times 4/3. No, it's actually being added. So every time you add a villager, it's actually adding 1/3 of the construction rate. And this is actually interesting because I've tested it on Norse infantry, and it works the same way. It does not take 1/3, like 33.333%, but actually 1/3 of the construction rate of the unit that is being added. So if you have Norse infantry building, again, you have 1 spearman, it will be building with only 50% construction rate. If you add another spearman, it will be 1/3 of the 50%. So it will add like 1/6. It will add 1/6 of 100%. Yeah, so 1/6. Another spearman, again 1/6, and that's how it is. And after testing this with Norse, it came to me like, what happens if you have like villager and the Norse infantry? This is actually similar to the Roman engineers as well. You can test it for yourself. What would happen if I start building the building with what would happen? Like if I start building it with different buildings and then I add the other units. And this was something I actually tested, and it actually was actually interesting. And my final conclusion will be start building the building with faster unit when using multiple units. And I did a test where I used one villager and three spearmen. What I built one barracks with starting with the spearman first, and the other barracks starting with the villager. And I came to a conclusion that if you start building with a unit, that unit will be used for the build time. So if you have the villager, it will take 50 seconds to build the barracks. If you use the spearman, it will take 100 seconds to build the barracks. And this will be the main builder. You can call it the main builder. Now every other builder you add, some helper builder, that unit will actually add only 1/3 of its construction rate. So after testing it, I came to this conclusion that if you started with the spearman, you had the 50% plus 1/6 for the one spearman, plus 1/6 for the other spearman, plus 1/3 for the villager. Now that's obviously, hey, 1/6 plus 1/6, that's 1/3. So it's 50% plus 2/3. So that leads to 116.67%. But when I started with the villager, that was the 100%, and the free spearmen give me the 50% additional construction rate. And honestly, I was surprised, but it exactly ended this way. The Even though I started building this barracks sooner, this barracks ended faster, was finished faster. It was actually very interesting. I've learned something from this one. So yeah, remember, always put the faster. So if you are playing as Romans, remember to start building with engineer, not the villager. It's actually very important, and the difference will be there. And yeah, during the test, the health was about the same value, so it was like, yeah, about the same person. When this was done, yeah, it was just portion done. And if you take the fraction 116 or 167 over 150, yeah, I was about that amount of health done. So yeah, I hope this was very learning experience from, or very explanatory for the building construction. And if you have any questions, again, leave a comment. Hopefully I'll answer them as much as possible. I definitely learned something, especially this one. Like this was very interesting. Start with the faster unit. That's my advice. Okay, and this we're gonna end this with train time versus train rate. So yeah, this is actually gonna be very similar to building construction rate and the build time. It's very similar. You imagine, well, pretty much the train time affects the unit that you put it on, which is some kind of product, the thing you're making. Whereas the train rate or even the construction rate, it affects the producer. So in the train rate, it's gonna be the building. In case of the building construction rate, it's gonna be the villager or the Norse infantry. Yeah, those are the producers, those are making the products. Products are affected by the time stats, and the rates affect the producers. And yeah, basically the same formula that I used here as the health over the build time is equal to the building construction rate is about the same here. Although here I'm using the train rate is equal to 1, which represents 1 unit per the time. So if you have 1 unit and it takes 10 seconds to train it, you make only 1/10 of the unit. Yeah, so 0.1. Yeah, and again, if you double the train rate, that and we use that 1 unit is still constant, yeah, you need to cut the train time by 50% to actually get the same result. So doubling the train rate again increases the train time, so lowers the train time by 50%. And yeah, I think that's all I have to say about this. Remember, train time affects units. Do not put this on building. There are some arrows that actually lower train time. Do not put it on buildings. It does not do anything for buildings. Buildings get affected by build time, not train time. Buildings get affected by train rate, which increases the amount of units they produce per second. Remember that, okay? Do not put the train time arrows on your buildings. It does nothing for you. And yeah, I think that's all from me for now. I don't think there's anything else to explain. But if you feel like I should explain something that I missed, yeah, leave a comment, ask me. I hopefully will have the answer. In case I don't have the answer, I'll try to find the answer, yeah. Make sure you check the basic stats so if you have something else to ask about these villager building stats, yeah, make sure. I think I took the most important thing here, so that kind of needed some further explanation, but I think that there's not much to explain here. I think it was more interesting in the combat stats. So yeah, next time I'm gonna take a look at the priest stats, and I'm kind of planning I'm planning to make the main stuff by the empower stats for the priestess of Ra, because those kind of need an explanation, and it was actually important to go through this as well, because this is gonna be very important for that for those stats. Yeah, it's gonna be even more interesting. So yeah, make sure you understand this. If you feel like I explained something poorly, yeah, make sure you ask in the comments. I'll do my best job to explain it better. So yeah, hope you enjoy this, and I'll see you next time.
Do I have a deal for you? Good day.